how about a little Benko Gambit and Blumenfeld theory? So let's get into it. Let's get our typical position. Takes, and what about e6 here? Well, this is one of the more tactical lines in the entire repertoire, but it's governed by the principle of I don't want black to have a big center. So I'm going to play knight c3, and on capture, bishop b7, e4, a critical move in memory marker, and we've got two branches here. First branch is if he grabs the pawn. Well, we support our knight, and really like this next move, queen g4, that sets up a lot of aggressive intention by white here. Bishop h6 with the mate threat. So knight f3 to harass the bishop. If it goes away, we can deliver mate. Castles, again, not too worried about him taking on a1 because the knight on e4 is hit. Mate will be threatened on g7 after the recapture. So knight d6 to save the knight. Rook a e1. And notice black's developmental issues. I'm definitely liking white in practical games here. So coming back after bishop b7, again e4, critical move to defend the knight. No going backwards, no giving him the center. So takes, d6. And that's like a really, really good Benoni for white here, where black's development's a bit awkward, and we got a pawn in hand. Knight e2 is interesting. So the knight can locate to c3 to hold everything together. And now we're just simply finishing development. Again, that backwards d6 pawn is a target. It's the reason why we play bishop f4. And get this trade down situation where white has a pawn in hand, and we'll look to press in the coming moves. So let's get to another sideline here. After a6, I am recommending accepting the gambit. So what if he comes back to e6? Same theme, same plan. Knight c3. Now knight takes a6. I'm going to pin the knight, grab the bishop pair. And now simple development. Get your pieces out of the way and castle. He can have the center. It's fine. We still have a pawn in hand. Bishop pair. Can't ask for more. So, okay, now for the main event, the actual Binko Gambit theory after we take bishop takes a6. And we're going to go old school, we're going to go classical here with e4. Straightforward, most direct path, pawn in hand, expect to be attacked, but you survive the attack, you win because you have the extra pawn. And I first was introduced to this line in the games of Grandmaster Schulman, and also I've seen it in Akobian's games. So the main feature compared to the typical main line when you look in the database, the typical main line deals with g3, king g2, and there's a lot of lines where black will play knight g4, knight e5, and I found that white has a much easier time when doing analysis by first playing h3, taking away the potential of black playing g4. This leaves him with lacking flexibility in a lot of variations in the future. Now we're going to finish development. So h3 is a critical move in memory marker. And after bishop g7, knight g to e2, not knight f3, another important point, because we're defending the knight. This is important to defend, so no problems here. Bishop's currently defending the pawn, and you'll see the importance of everything being in a defensive structure over the next few moves. King g1, we have now castled by hand. So let's take a look at this deviation. Black sometimes gets uncomfortable with the idea that white can hold in this type of position and just slowly improve. Like f3, for instance, holds it all together, and now the game from that point revolves around trying not to lose one of my extra queenside pawns with white. But if black wants to try to force things, e6 is a possibility where we'll capture and simply go rook f1. No need for the greed. And then a4, knight g3, f4 breaking the pin and threatening e5. And I really liked this example, which came from a correspondence game. And That was email 2015. So overall, shouldn't really be intimidated by this e6 move, as we're able to get solid counterplay against it. Now, lastly, we've got queen a5, which is the main line here. Well, we got one more branch, but queen a5 kicks things off. Queen c2 is the most flexible move. Watching the e pawn again, watching our b pawn, making it to where our bishop can move. Now, rook b1, absolutely no problems with flexibility here. So let's first take a look at knight e8. Knight's coming around. And here we have that significant reason why the knight needs to be on e2, to defend the other knight. There is no capture that won't result in just capturing back with the knight, and we're completely fine. So, significant reasons for why we're putting our pieces where they are. Jot those down if you're a note taker. So bishop g5, putting the question to the e-pawn, but we don't want it. We just want good development with our piece. The reason is if we get greedy and take this pawn, our bishop can get hemmed in with this f6. So instead, rook h to d1, that rook's not doing anything. f4, and it's typical for white to look for the right moment to slam in the center in these lines. Grab, rook d2, and notice how black never really generated counterplay with the open files, and now he's got to react to what's happening in the center. Knight d4, and this is a common maneuver. If you can get a knight to c6, that bone in the throat knight is just going to be an absolute monster. Knight a2, and we get this convenient trade down, and we'll only go a few more moves here because white is definitely winning at this point. And that's a game between Shulman and Bartholomew from the World Open 2007. And last but certainly not least, we've got a game from Shulman and Alejandro Ramirez from Dallas 2006. And it starts with rook b4, rook d1, and white's in no hurry. We see this b3 move again. Not too worried about c4 being played because, memory marker what we talked about before, if I can get a knight to c6, it can be a bone in the throat. So black is trying to prevent that with knight e5. Don't let the pin sit. You can get in some tactical problems there. Knight a2 to kick the rook. And now we're insistent upon obtaining that c6 square. And now it's a matter of technique. White has no weaknesses and an extra pass pawn. And I really like the rest of this game by Shulman here. This black does what he can to generate counterplay, but nothing doing really. So we're able to get a win. Black is resigning here because of rook a8 ideas. Knight's kind of lacking for squares, shall we say. So overall, the Bloomfield type stuff, just don't allow them to get the big center and you're not going to be attacked. Memory marker would be like this e4 move to defend the knight. And then with the overall Binko Gambit, it's important to play e4 and get that bishop off the board. And then how do we get our king castled by hand? h3 to prevent the g4. Where does the knight go? It goes to e2 to support the other knight for the future. And then here, this is an experience and play-by-ear position. The more you play, say after queen c2, the more you'll get a feel for what to do. And I do like the plan of rook b1, followed by b3, and seeing if we need to play for f4 or for f3. We had examples of both in this short video. Thanks.